All right, everyone. I want to thank everyone for showing up at the Farsight Spotlight. Now, the Farsight Spotlight, we live stream on Sunday nights, and then later on Sunday, and a couple hours after it's done live streaming, we put the edited version and we cut it in half. So the first half of it goes up on Sunday, and the second half of it goes up on YouTube on Wednesday. So those of you who are watching it live stream get the whole thing. Everyone else gets it, half on Sunday and half on Wednesday, and we have it in two segments. So there's two different things we're talking about, and they're really short, so that we get sort of the basics out there for you to see right away. All right. So the first things we're going to be talking about is the UFO or the UAP swarming that's happening all over the planet right now. And then we're going to go into the second topic, which is the idea of governmental secrecy and censorship, which is dominating everything. So part one is about the actual swarming. So let's start that. All right, friends, the UFOs or UAPs are clearly swarming all over the planet. Now, it's not just something that's happening in New Jersey. It's happening all over the United States, Britain, Russia, Asia, all over Asia, Australia, all over Australia. It's happening actually worldwide. So there's something going on. The government is pushing the idea that these are drones, and the media just mimics the government, that it's drones. And you're thinking like drones, you're thinking like DJI drones that sort of have propellers and go up and do it like that. Now, the next step in disinformation that's going to come out is you can be certain that the government is going to send out people with DJI drones and photograph them and say, see, I told you it was drones. These are just DJI drones type of things. But, that probably won't go down very well either. And I'll tell you why it won't go down very well. But these objects, they're not human-built, Earth-built drones. First of all, they couldn't appear, if they were human-built or Earth-built drones, they couldn't appear worldwide during the entire world. No one could coordinate that to appear absolutely everywhere all over the world. And you're not talking just a few. You're talking, if you add up all of the appearances over the entire world, you're talking at least many hundreds and possibly over thousands. So you're talking a lot of them coming up all over the place, and no nation has the capability of doing that many of these things coming out. They're also not small. Now, I have some information for you. They actually are drones, but they're not human drones. They're ET drones, meaning there's likely not a person, a human being, or an ET inside the objects. They're almost I haven't been told this, but it makes common sense that they're not being flown by actual biological beings. And the reason is that the U.S. government, with the secret space program, has been shooting down. They do have technology that was given to them by the group of ETs. I'm going to be covering that, called the bad ETs. And they run the secret space program, and they're the ones that are crashing the UFO ships. And the good ETs, the ones that we work with at Farsight, and I'm going to be going into that, they don't want to risk any more personnel. They've lost a lot of ships and a lot of personnel, and they don't want to have thousands of these UAPs flying all over the place and having the government try to shoot them down. Now, the government is not currently trying to shoot them down, and for a reason. If they did it, they would have to use the technology that the bad ETs have given them, and then you would see it. You would see the technology, and the secrecy is absolutely paramount. So they're not doing that, at least not yet. Okay, so this is not a human-built drone phenomenon. If you want to call them drones, they're made by the ETs. And they're doing them in huge numbers, and you can assume that there's an AI pilot in all of them. You can sort of think of them as being remotely controlled, but they're using advanced propulsion systems. They're not using rockets or propellers or anything. They're ET crafts, just smaller versions, and they have some very large versions as well. And the larger ones, the big ones, of course, have people inside those. Not Earth human people, but people. Okay, so the UAPs are clearly coordinating themselves across the entire planet. It's worldwide, the coordination. And so you can't really say it's the Russians or the Chinese because or the Americans. It's happening worldwide. This coordination is everywhere. So at any level that you look at it, it cannot be a single nation that's doing this or a single company that's doing this. All right. Now, there have been many military bases that have been that have these drones hovering them, and including in the United States as well as in Britain and elsewhere, and they have used anti-drone technology on those objects, and it has had no effect whatsoever. This was reported by Ross Coulthart on News Nation. He has tons, I'm going to be saying more about him, but he has tons of contact. News Nation is your best source right now for getting objective information about the UFO, UAP phenomenon. All right, so what we, that can be found best on YouTube. They have a website, but the YouTube version is clearly the best. So, and again, Ross Coulthart of News Nation is probably the best source. He's based in Australia, but he's got contacts all throughout the United States government and FBI, the U.S. government, and all types of different sources. And he apparently seems to be very honest in terms of just telling people reporting on what people, high up in the administrations are actually telling him. And he's stating point blank that they have absolutely no idea where they are, what they are, who's doing it, whatever. And they're as baffled as everybody else. Now, at the very highest level of the government, of the U.S. government, they absolutely know what's going on. But that's another story I'm going to cover in just a couple minutes. So, in fact, let's cover that now. The U.S. government absolutely knows what's going on. And they know because they know it's an extraterrestrial phenomenon. It's not an Earth-based, DJI type of a situation. Now, let's talk about FARSIGHT. FARSIGHT has worked with one group of extraterrestrials who we call the good ETs. There are actually many types and groups of extraterrestrials, but they loosely align themselves into two basic categories, ones that we call the good ETs and the bad ETs. Now, the bad ETs have signed agreements with the United States government to operate on Earth. And what they have basically been doing is a huge human trafficking operation. I'm talking huge human trafficking operation. And the government has been allowing that to happen in exchange for technology transfer. Now, some of this technology transfer is all from crashed UFO ships. The U.S. government wanted weapons. They wanted weapons. That's what they really wanted. And my side of the ETs, the good ETs, didn't want to do that. They didn't want to give it to them. The bad ETs agreed. And so the bad ETs are actually supplying the U.S. government with the technology necessary to reverse engineer the crashed ships. The U.S. government then sends up our own secret space program and shoots down. Now, my side, the good ETs, we can evade them pretty easily, but sometimes the ships get sort of tricked into being in vulnerable situations, and then the government, the government's secret space program comes out of nowhere and shoots them, and they crash. So the good ETs could easily defend themselves. They could knock out the entire U.S. secret space program in a blink of an eye, but they don't want to do that because if they did, then the government would say, oh my gosh, they're the aggressors, and that would throw all of humanity further into the hands of the bad ETs. So there's a lot of sacrifices that have been going on from the good ETs. So there are this groups, good ETs, bad ETs. Each one is sort of complicated with many subgroups within. But generally speaking, the good ETs are adamant free will people. I mean, it sort of irritates me, but that's my side. They're adamant free will. They won't do anything to help somebody or whatever unless the person agrees. So if the person wants to remain a slave, that's okay. They won't do it. But if they ask for help, then they will assist. The bad ETs are totally the opposite. They don't ask permission for anything. They do whatever they want, and they have a huge human trafficking operation that's another whole story. I don't want to get into that right now, but that's the main reason they're here. They're not looking for the gold or the minerals or whatever, the plant life. They're after humans. Okay, so this idea of written agreements has actually been spoken by some people, including Chaim Ashed. Now, he is the former CEO, the head of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years. That's right. Now, he's also a decorated general, and he's currently a professor. But he has actually spoken openly about these written, signed agreements that the United States government and a few other governments have with the ETs. Now, he doesn't call them the bad ETs. We call them the bad ETs. But those are the groups that actually have these signed agreements with the United States government. And Hayim Mashed, that's the Israeli Space Directorate is the Israeli version of NASA. It's about as official as you can get. He did it in a Hebrew publication, in an interview in a Hebrew publication, and I'm certain he didn't think it would get out. Trouble is, a whole bunch of people know Hebrew, and it was immediately translated into a zillion languages, and that's how it happened. Okay. Now, so we have been interacting with the side called the good ETs for a very long time. It was secret for many, many, many years. I'm talking many years. And then we were told in January of 2022, it's got to end, everything's got to be open. So we said, what? All right, so we have been interacting with, and I mean like on a regular, normal level, interacting with, and they've been giving us help with respect to our remote viewing procedures. I tried to modernize the remote viewing procedures myself, and to be quite honest, I wasn't very good at it. And they came in and nudged us. It was sort of like a graduate student and a mentor type of relationship, and sort of told us how to fix them. Those are the procedures that we use right now. I love to take credit and say I'm a genius, but they helped a lot. Okay, so we have interacted with them openly. Starting in January 2022, they told me I had to give my full history of interacting with them since I was a kid. Everything. So that's what we started. So we have actual board meetings. We have meetings with them once a month, and we normally do those in secret locations on the beach. And then they wanted those things recorded, so it's a lot of work to bring all that camera equipment down to the beach and set it up in the middle of the night. And now we have board meetings here in the Atlanta area, and they insist on having everything recorded and put on social media. So we publish it out on both FARSIGHTPrime.com as well as YouTube. And those happen once a month. Now, let's talk about the ETs and the swarms. In the last board meeting, that happened on November 13th, okay, here in Atlanta. And there were 2 ETs there. Now, this is not channeling. They're actually physically there, sitting in chairs. Now, we can see them. You probably wouldn't see them, but it took us years to be able to actually, they trained us for years to be able to actually see them. It's like remote viewing, but we can see them live, and we can see that they're wearing clothes and the whole thing, whether they're male and female and so on. And we know personalities, certain people, and we're very familiar with them. Anyway, it took us a long while to be able to do that, but when we finally became comfortable with that, we started to record them, and it's definitely not channeling. Channeling is where someone comes into your mind, you get sidelined, you don't even remember what happened, and the other being sort of takes over. This is not that. We're fully alive, fully awake, and just talking to them. Now, the question is often asked, why don't you video record them, and why don't they make themselves physically visible? Look, folks, this has got a really easy answer. If the ETs were physically visible in our board meeting, you know the United States government, you're not fools. How long would it take before the authorities broke into the building and arrested them? Real live physical ETs that you can see. How long would it take? A second? 2 seconds? It wouldn't take any. The beings couldn't go on if they were physically visible. So they have to stay in a state that we can see them, but the cameras can't see them. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the board meetings, but we can see them clear as day. And but you wouldn't have the board meetings at all. And if everybody was visible, and when we go to the beach, there's ships and everything like that. They have to use cloaking technology. Otherwise, guaranteed, the U.S. Secret Space Program would come and there would be start shooting, and the people, they'd try to arrest the people, and it should be so obvious to you that at the current time, it's not a matter of us recording them and showing them to you and letting them smile on the camera. it just wouldn't happen. The government would immediately invade and arrest people. You should be able to see that this is obvious the case. That won't be the case in the future, but anyway. So our board meeting last was on November 13th. We published it on November 15th. Okay, it takes a while. We have to, there's 6 people being mic'd. It has to be mixed. It took a while. So on the 15th of November, 2 days later, we published it on YouTube and FarsightPrime.com. On the 18th, around the 18th of November is when the swarms happened. Now on the meeting, they clearly stated, and it's still on YouTube and on FarsightPrime.com, you can watch it now. They said they were going to start this. They said, we want you to go out. We're not going to use any stealth technology. Tell everybody just to go out, start taking video recordings of them. It's going to start. And we want worldwide everybody to start just video recording them. No stealth technology. That means you don't need the specialized cameras that we often use with 120 frames per second and infrared. Just any camera, including cell phone cameras, you'll see us. So that was announced publicly on the 15th. The meeting happened on the 13th, but we published it on the 15th, and on the 18th it started. All right? On the 20th, they started flying all over U.S. Air Force bases in Britain and British Air Force bases as well. Whenever there's like nuclear weapons being transferred and things like that, they show up in large numbers. Anyway, so that happened. Science is based on a theory, an experiment, and a result. We gave you the whole thing. We said it was going to happen. We told you when it was going to happen, and it happened. What more do you want? Okay. Now, they offer continued guidance to us. This is a complicated situation. We've been working on this for decades and decades, and it's actually started like way before even I was a person, well, a physical person, a human being. And I've covered the need for invisibility. Now, the good ETs are opposed to the bad ETs. In the solar system, the good ETs militarily dominate the bad ETs. That's clear. But the bad ETs have these damn written agreements with the U.S. government and some other governments, and the good ETs are free will fanatics. I'm sorry they're my side, but it irritates me a bit. And if the governments are going to, sign written agreements, that's a free will decision. But the good ETs recognize that the public is being kept in the dark, and they don't know anything about that. So the good ETs have been completely shut out of the U.S. governmental people. They're completely shut out. They have no contacts with, presidents and things like that. The bad ETs have locked up all of the administration stuff. So the good ETs have been working with the masses, winning the hearts and minds of the masses. It started long ago with even like the movie industry. In the middle of the night, they would drop script ideas into the heads of script writers. And that's, when the script writers would wake up and say, oh, I have this great idea for a new movie or a new TV series or whatever. And they're free will fanatics, so they're not going to force the script writers or the producers to do anything. But that's, if the people say that's a great idea and they think it's their idea and they do it. But that's where Star Wars came from, Star Trek came from, all the new all the science fiction type stuff, the Matrix movies, that's all these drops that go into the scriptwriter's head and they say, that's a great idea, and they make these fabulous movies. So the populace has been warmed up to the idea that intergalactic life exists, there's conflict in the galaxy and stuff like that. So the good ETs are here because everyone on this planet is in a prison. This really is a legitimate, real prison. A prison keeps people, they can't escape, and it confines people and basically enslaves them, and that's what's going on right now. It's a prison. And the people here on the planet don't even know that, but the people on the planet are by and large friends and relatives that were thrown into this prison, during a galactic conflict process that happened, for like 1 million years. This galaxy was the scene of a Holocaust for like 1 million years. Now the conflict, the war has died down, but this prison that we have on Earth is a leftover phenomenon, and some of the authoritarian side of the conflict still is here. And that's what the bad ETs are. Now, my side, the good ETs, are not capable militarily of completely defeating the bad ETs across the entire galaxy. There's a standoff right now. But in this solar system, huge resources have been put in, and yes, they are militarily capable, but they can't invade if they invaded the population, would say, "Oh my gosh, we're being invaded by aliens," and they would think the good guys are the bad guys, and they'd ask for help to defeat the good guys. So the only solution is a revolution from below. You have to have disclosure, full disclosure. Now, the disclosure has to happen now. It cannot happen later. The government and the authorities desperately want to control social media. I mean, you can see it, and I'm going to actually, and when I get to the second section, I'm going to show you proof of that. But you know that already. They're canceling YouTube channels, pulling videos, all types of stuff. They desperately want, to remove posts on Facebook and other places. Social media is a real threat to them. In 2 or 3 more years, social media will be completely locked up. So we have a situation where the social media is still available. It's okay now, sort of. There is censorship, but it's still got some holes in it. So now is the time. If we wait 2 or 3 more years, it's just not going to happen. And there are some people who actually legitimately channel extraterrestrials. And the people that are actually doing the channeling are angels. They're wonderful. They're really trying to help everything. But the entities they're channeling are devils. They're awful, and they're very deceptive. And they have like 1,000,000 years of practice in how to manipulate things. And they're saying, disclosure will happen in a couple years, and humanity is the only problem. That we have to wake up and fully embrace our warm brothers and sisters across the galaxy. That's crap. Nothing like that. There's conflict. There's war. There's nowhere that everything's happy and friendly. And so, and anyone that's telling you that, wait a couple years, they're just lying to you. Now the humans that are doing the channeling, they don't know that they're lying. It's the being themselves that are channeling. That's why we don't really like channeling, because we like to stay fully in control. And if you're going to tell us something, and I'll translate it. But I don't want to give my body up to somebody else to say whatever they want. So anyway, but the human channels are great people. It's just that the entities that are channeling through them very often are awful. All right. So the good ETs have been telling us for months, actually for years, but it's been really intensifying over the last number of months, that this time is coming. I mean, they have been giving us all types of background for what's actually going to happen in our remote viewing sessions, as well as just physically telling us what's going to happen. And I must admit, it's been a little bit nerve-wracking for us to sort of hear all this and then to see everything change on all the planetary stuff. The sort of planetary meltdown is sort of something we've been watching and we've been told about with the wars and everything like that. So what's going to happen, basically, is that the ETs are going to push the agenda. The good ETs are going to push the agenda to crush this censorship issue, so that the governments have to sort of, basically, no one's going to believe the governments anymore in terms of the censorship stuff. And that's going to start cracking and eventually collapsing the information bottleneck, the censorship bottleneck. But in addition, conflict is coming in the war, in terms of the wars around the world, and they're going to get much worse. And the ETs are going to have to intervene. Now, when they intervene, they don't want that to be the first time you see them. So if that's the first time you see them, you won't know who they are. But if you see them up in the skies all the time, then you say, "Oh, I know who those are. They're the good guys." So that's why you see the swarming happen. And it had to happen sort of suddenly so that it gets media attention, sort of a dramatic, sudden effect. Now, Farsight, its main job was to be a liaison group between humanity and the ETs, the good ETs, to basically tell everybody what's been going on in the galaxy for thousands of years. That's why the Farsight library on FarsightPrime.com exists. If you have not yet subscribed to FarsightPrime.com, you need to do that. That was developed by the good ETs themselves. All those projects, I mean, we did it, but they did it as well. They helped. And the whole library, its purpose is to tell you what really has been going on, because you're not getting that information from anywhere else. So when the big conflicts happen and people are going to be asking, well, then what's the truth? They need to go someplace. And that's what the FarsightPrime.com library is all about. They can go there and get these answers. So this is the reason why we built the library, so that everybody can do it. And then we come out with new projects in FarsightPrime.com every month. and they're not available anywhere else. We can't. They'd be pulled off of social media if we put them elsewhere. So those projects are absolutely crucial for us, and we're actually increasing them in 2025 on a monthly basis. So this UAP or UFO phenomenon is going to increase. Now, the good ETs haven't told us what they're going to do, but they're going to be, you can assume that they're going to be adapting as government censorship issues continue. They're going to be adapting. So, for example, the bad ETs, you can be certain that they're going to try to muddy the waters. They're going to have some of their ships show up so that it looks like our ships, the ETs, but they're going to do things that'll be scary for people down below. They're going to do things that'll upset people and so on, and people then say, oh, then they're bad. So there's a problem with having to sort out which is which. But the good ETs have the military capability to defend themselves from the bad ETs, and they'll try to police the bad ETs as best as possible. But remember, the bad ETs are dominant on the planet right now, but they don't have access to the masses. They control the masses by controlling the elites. That's really what basically goes on. So as the war events continue, then you'll start to see the ET intervention to stop the wars, and they're probably going to get really bad. They haven't told us exactly, but the basic information we're getting is the wars are going to get really bad, and then you're going to really see a need for the ET intervention, and then they'll come out and save the day type of a thing. Anyway, that's the plan to intervene. Okay, now this is the key part that I got to get to, and then we're going to go on to the part 2. FARSIGHT, as far as we know, we've not been told that there's any other group. FARSIGHT, as far as we know, we are the only group. There may be another group, but we don't know about it. We are the only group that can authoritatively talk about the extraterrestrials who are flying the drones or flying the ships that everyone's seeing swarming all over the world. We are the only group. Again, the ETs have not told us of another group, so I'm assuming there may be another group, but we don't know that other group. And there is no other group that's actually involved in interacting with them and producing a video library. We would know if there's another video library out there, and there is not another video library out there. So we are the only group that's authoritative with regard to explaining who the ETs are, why they're doing the drones, why they're doing the swarming, why they're doing everything, okay? Now, the FARSIGHT members, including myself, we have not been interviewed by the government in congressional hearings. We've not been interviewed on News Nation. We've not been interviewed on any of the major podcasts. That's why we have our own streaming service and our own channel on YouTube. We don't have the ability to force these other groups to put us on. So if you look at people talking about the UAPs, you'll see they have like 500,000 views. They have like 2 million subscribers and stuff like that. And you're going to be asking, well, if we're the only group that can actually tell people what's going on, why aren't we on those venues? This has been a common phenomenon with us, from the very beginning. And I'm going to be covering that in the censorship issue. But we have a healthy number of subscribers, but not in the hundreds of thousands or millions on YouTube. And we have, our own streaming service, but it doesn't, it's technically on the same level as any of the major streaming services like Disney, Paramount Plus, HBO Max. But, in terms of millions of subscribers, we don't have that. So the real question is, when will that change? When will that change where we, who are the only ones who can tell people what's actually happening, will actually go on these larger venues and these major podcasts? We don't know. We can't force people to do that, but we assume that will happen at some point. The ETs are doing something to do that, and at some point it's going to be turned on, and those other venues will ask for us to talk. But right now you're getting a lot of people who don't really know what's going on talking about it, speculating, but they don't know what's going on. But we know exactly what's going on, and you're getting it right here. All right, now we're going to move on to the second half of the FARSIGHT Spotlight. And if you're watching this as a video, second half shows up as a video on Wednesday on the FARSIGHTPrime.com as well as FARSIGHT YouTube channel, which is just FARSIGHT. Okay,